Madhavi, working as Assistant Professor in Institute of Aeronautical Engineering. In this session, I would like to explain the introduction about of web technologies. So before entering into the web technologies, we will describe what is different terminologies we will use in our web environment and the difference between of Internet and World Wide Web WWW and introduction of HTML and fundamental of some of HTML elements. Let us see one by one what are the different terminologies we will use in our web environment. So the first terminology we will use it in our internet, in our world, web or WWW and web technology, internet, communication models, web browser, web page and types of web pages, website and different types of websites. So in this session, we are going to describe about of all these terminologies and basic introduction about of HTML and fundamental tag HTML elements. So let us see one by one. So first, what is web technology? So the web technology is nothing but the methods which are where the computers communicate with each other through the use of markup language or multimedia languages is known as web technologies. What are the different types of markup languages we know? Are HTML and JavaScript, WW and different markup language CSS, JavaScript, XML, PHP and all those are different markup languages. We will use it to make computers communicate together. So these are all technologies collectively we call it as web technologies. So what is actually internet? So everybody in our entire of the world, every person day by day life, they are using the word internet. What is internet? Internet is nothing but network of interconnected networks. Network of interconnected networks. So by use of this internet, the computers able to communicate together. So this internet was created by Advanced Research Project Research Agency ARPA and this is developed by US Department of Defense for Scientific and Military Communications. So how actually these computers are connected or able to communicate? Means by using of high-speed data lines. High-speed data lines. So by using of these high-speed data lines to exchange the data with any other user. What is the purpose of this high-speed data lines? This high-speed data lines carries the information to exchange the data with any other usernet. So who is developed all this internet and all? ARPANET agency, NSFNet, internet. So after this, what is some people are using of the terminology or word? Internetworking. So what is this internetworking? Means it is the process of connecting separate networks. Connecting separate networks. So what is the main difference between internet and World Wide Web, WW? So internet is nothing but just web pages. So more than web pages. More than web pages. And WW is a collection of web pages. So here internet includes the WW web pages, the collection of web pages as well as news groups, email and all other shared resources. So this World Wide Web is a part of the internet. So in other words, internet we call it as superset and WWW is subset of the internet. So in another words, WW is one of the application of the internet. What is the use of this www? It is used to share the information on top of the internet. On top of the internet. So this, how actually this information is transmitted. So is any mechanism is there? Means that we will use that HTTP protocol. We will use that HTTP protocol. It will transfer the information over the internet. It will transfer the information over the internet. So let us see. The internet is nothing but interconnection of computer networks. Interconnection of computer networks. So coming to here in this picture. So World Wide Web is a part of internet. So here what are actually the services provided by the internet are different services that FTP, file transfer protocol, and email and telnet. These are the different services the internet will be provided. So after this, we will briefly differentiate the differences between of internet and WW. Internet is nothing but connecting a computer to another computer anywhere in the world. So the World Wide Web, which is a collection of information accessed via the internet. So in other words, internet is an infrastructure and World Wide Web is a service on top of that infrastructure. So internet can be able to viewed, suppose in our daily life, internet can able to view as a big bookstore. So here web can be viewed as collection of books on that store. And in some advanced level, if you speak some advanced level, internet is think of as a hardware and advanced level WW is think of a software. So here this internet is hardware based application and WW is software oriented compared to internet. So the internet is come up in the late 1960s and this World Wide Web is established in late 1989, is developed by Tim Berners-Lee. So the internet is superset of WW and WW is a subset of internet. So it is known as, this first version of internet was known as ARPANET and in the beginning WW was known as NSFNet. So here the internet uses IP addresses. Later we will discuss what is IP address. And WW uses HTTP protocol. So by using this protocol, the information will be transferred over the internet. So this is all about the main differences between internet and WWW. So now let us see what are the different communication models will be available for transmitting the information. So here computer networks have opened an entire frontier in the world of computing called client-server model. So in the client-server model, client or browser will send any request, to the server, and here in the server it will process the information, and if it is available or a successful or unsuccessful also, it will send some response back to the client. So here in this client server model, client sends the request to the server will process that request and send some response back to the client. So indirectly we will call this as it follows two-tier architecture. So initial days of project development in industry, the people have used the two-tier architecture. Later they have moved to the three-tier architecture that I will discuss later. So now another terminology, file server. What is file server is a computer that stores and manages the files for multiple users on a network. So the server is nothing but, file server is nothing but, it stores and manages the files. So next, what is another terminology? What is web server? A computer is dedicated to respond to the request. A computer is dedicated for responding to the request. So that is from who will send the request? So the browser client, or the client will send the request for the web pages. What are web server and web clients? So we will frequently use, the people are used so frequently, web servers and web clients and all. What are that? World Wide Web, it is a large network made up of many web servers and web clients. So for example, the web servers are storing the websites and the web clients are viewing those websites. The examples for web browsers are Chrome, Opera, and Internet Explorer, Safari, Netscape Navigator, all etc. All browsers are going to be client browsers. So there are many servers in this entire of the world to store web pages for the World Wide Web. So every computer, whether it is a server or a client, given a unique identification number when it connects to the internet. Any computer wants to communicate means that it able to communicate using some unique identification number when it connects to the internet. This unique number is called an IP address. For example, here, see, suppose a student is studying in a college, and each and every student is assigned some unique roll number, so that whenever they are writing, they are going and accessing some of the college resources, they will allow to give roll number. So that unique number is giving as that unique number or roll number is like the same, is called as here IP address. So here an IP address, how the IP addresses will be look like. So the IP addresses will be in, we have seen so many places, it will be like look like 192.168.120.101 like that. It will be, this is this is another concept which we will studied in our computer networks. So this is class A, class B, class A, according to classes. Actually, they will configure the numbers and they will assign those numbers and assign the IP address to the particular unique websites. So here the servers, what servers will do, and storing or hosting a website where it has static IP addresses. This means that if you know the IP address, so the server can always able to find the web pages. Now, here the difficulty is, are we able to remember all these numbers? If we want to retrieve any web page from the web, so can I able to remember IP addresses? No, it's not it's not possible. So how actually to overcome of this problem, what other technology come up is, they have given domain name servers. So what is this domain name service? Means that if you have to remember an IP address for every single web page that you want to visit, is it possible? No. So are you able to remember? No. So for that, instead of www.google.com, we have to remember the number is very difficult. So if you remember some sites addresses names, so then we will remember very easy. So with the help of domain name services, we assign some names to the websites. So the names are easy to remember instead of numbers. A DNS server stores the host names for its associated IP addresses. Here, when a user or client types some websites for accessing the information over the web. Then whenever that domain server will translate what is the IP of that footbar, whenever the people or client are type something like site www.google.com, very immediately it is just what is it will DNS server will look it up. What is the IP of this google.com? What is IP of google.com? So once in this DNS server, what is DNS server? What it stores? It stores all the host names associated with the IP addresses. In DNS server, it finds out and sends the particular IP address back to the machine, back to the person. So whenever that client or user is typing that google.com, then automatically by default index.html page will be, once that page will be processed in the server and it renders back to the client machine or to the user response footbar.com/index.html. So like this, so this domain name server will store the host names for its associated IP addresses. So here, how we will, because we are saying that websites or web is a collection of so many web pages. So how we will find it out, our particular web page. So once the IP addresses by using of uniform resource locator. Once this IP address and domain name each identify the particular computer, web server on the internet. So by using of IP address, we will find it out which computer, in particular computer on the internet. However, it doesn't indicate that whether the HTML web page document resides on that computer. To identify that web page's exact location, so the browsers will rely on the URL. It relies that browsers are relying on the URL. What is this URL is abbreviated as Uniform Resource Locator. So what is this URL? URL is a address. It is a 3-part scheme or it contains 3 parts. So what this transfer protocol it will have. So here the transfer protocol is used for transporting the file. This transfer protocol, whatever transfer protocol we will use it, either HTTP or HTTPS transfer protocols, that transfer protocols are used for transporting the file. So here prefix usually HTTP. If you type it so many, we type it the websites in a browsers www. Before of that, we have seen that HTTP://. So the domain name of the computer where the file resides. So that we call it as host name. And the next, whatever web page you are looking, that page is path name. The path name of the folder or directory on the computer where the file resides. That we call it as path. Let us see. So while we are typing the websites or any information on the web, we have typed like this. So here the first HTTP is a protocol, which protocol we have used to transfer the page or access the information over the web. So the first is prefix that tells about the protocol. The second is host name or domain name. So it identifies a particular computer somewhere on the internet. So the next, whatever path we have given sem/index.html, that is a path. It identifies a file within a hierarchical directory structure on the server. So this is nothing but, so how we identify a web page on the web means by using the browsers will use Uniform Resource Locator. Now come to the people are frequently used web and World Wide Web or HTML. So this World Wide Web, it is basically a system of internet servers and computers that support specially formatted documents. So here this World Wide Web supports formatted documents, and this what language we will use to write these formatted documents means that by using of HTML. So the documents are formatted in a markup language called HTML, Hypertext Markup Language. These documents may also contain the graphics, audios, and images, etc. Now come to the next, web clients or browsers, web browsers. So what is the duty of web browser? What are the functionalities of the browsers? Or browsers, what functionality it will perform by the browser? So first, whenever the user types a website, then that browser or client browser, it makes HTTP request on behalf of the user. So here it will reformat the URL what entered as a valid HTTP request. So after once the valid HTTP request form, then it uses DNS to convert server's host name to appropriate IP address. After that, it established the TCP connection using the IP addresses and sends this HTTP request over the connection and wait for the server's response. Suppose here this is user, this is server, client, server. So when user is typing some website here, then that browser will makes this HTTP request on behalf of the user, on behalf of the client, and it will send the request to the server. So then here in the servers, that request will be processed, then send the response back to the client. If the document is not a plain text, but instead it is written in HTML, then it involves and it renders the document back to the client. So what are the different browsers we know, or what are the different servers we have it in our web? So different browsers, some of the examples are Internet Explorer, Firefox, Mozilla, Netscape, Opera, etc. And servers are Apache, Microsoft, Netscape, AOL server, Java web server, and Oracle web server. So now sometimes we are using of web pages. The people are used as web pages. So what is web page? Web page is nothing but a document, simply a document which is written in HTML, and these web pages are static or dynamic. Now what is static web page? So by using HTML, we are allowed to write only static web pages. So what is static means that the user can't able to interact with the page. Suppose we are considering the IARE website. The first web page, index page or home page. So are we able to modify any information on the home page? No, because the IARE website, that index or home page, it will say some information, it renders some information to the user. When the person or user clicks www.iare.ac.in, then it will give some information about the website. By default, index page will be rendered back to the user, and in this index page or home page contains the static information. Here you can't able to change the information. So that is nothing but static page, static web page. Now what is dynamic web page? Now another web page category of web pages are dynamic web page. So dynamic web page. Dynamic is nothing but user able to give input to the page or user able to interact with a web page. Either user able to give input or user able to interact with a web page. That is nothing but dynamic. So a page where user able to interact directly within the web page. So now come to the website. So what is website? It is a collection of web pages. So what are the different types of websites we have seen? So here also there are two types of websites. One is static website and another one is dynamic website. So static website and dynamic website. So static website, it is simply developed using of the client technologies. What are the client technologies? Just HTML and all XML. So by just using of client technologies, these static websites will be developed. So the dynamic website. So here we need to give some interaction between the user and web page. So the websites are developed using client and server side technologies. So some client technologies are that HTML, XML and server side technologies, CGI, Perl, PHP and all are server side technologies. So now coming to the HTML. Hypertext. So to create any static websites or dynamic websites, for creating static websites, we will use HTML. What is use of HTML means that HTML is used to structure the or used to design the web pages. Used to design or give a structure to the web pages. So hypertext markup language. It is a language for specifying how text and graphics are appear on a web page. It contains a different tags which is used to give the structures. Tags or elements. We will call it as tags or elements. So who is developed of this hypertext? In 1960s, Ted Nelson introduced this hypertext. So hypertext is nothing but a markup language which is used to create static web pages. So HTML is used to create static web pages. So let me see what is the meaning of this HTML. Hyper. H is nothing but hyper. T means the text. M is markup. And L is language. So here hyper. Hyper is nothing but links which are used to give that cross-reference links. Which are used to give cross-reference between the web pages or links to the one web page to another web page. And text is nothing but a document, structured document. And markup is nothing but, so here the tag elements, structuring the structure of tag elements. And language which is used to communicate. Language is used to communicate the web pages. So here the HTML documents are plain text files. User can create these documents using any text editor. It doesn't require any software, big softwares to develop these web pages. By using any text editor, we can able to design our documents. So for example, the text editor are Notepad, Notepad++, Gedit, Sublime Text or Amaya. But in industry, they will use different IDEs for developing of websites, web pages. So those are Visual Studio.net and Edit Plus, and like that they will use in the industry. So who was developer of this HTML means? The HTML was developed by Tim Berners-Lee. And these HTML standards are created by a group called W3C, World Wide Web Consortium. Still now, how many versions of HTML are existing means? The first HTML 2.0 in later 1960 onwards, HTML is existing, and HTML 2.0 was released in 1994 with little improvements. After that, in 1996, HTML 3.2 was released with some additions. So later, in 1997, HTML 4.0 is released and slightly amended in 1999. Now, the current version we are using is HTML 5.0, and which is developed or released in 2012. So what are the different advantages and disadvantages of HTML? So as we have seen, HTML is used for developing static web pages. So the advantages of HTML is it is widely used and easy to learn and use, and it is error-free languages, because if you use any programming languages, the compiler will generate some errors and we need to rectify that. And once if you rectify that, then only it will move to the runtime execution. So here in HTML, it is error-free language. So by using the tag elements, we are able to write documents. And browser here, every browser supports HTML language. By default, some OSS itself is having of these all browsers, and all browsers support this HTML. So we no need to purchase any additional extra software. So what are the main disadvantages with the HTML means? HTML allowed to use only static, where user can't able to interact with the web page, static and plain pages. So if you want to create such a type of dynamic web pages, we need to embed JavaScript into HTML scripting language. We need to embed it into HTML and make the web pages are becoming of dynamic. So here I need to write lot of code for making a simple web page. And here the security features also little weak in HTML. These are the different disadvantages of HTML. So now let us see how actually these browsers are working. It follows client-server architecture. So it has two components, web browser and web server. And this internet works with client-server architecture or two-tier architecture. So here, what is client means that where the browser is running. That your computer runs software called client, where you are typing the websites. That is nothing but client browser. It interacts with another software known as server. So here web browser and web server. From web browser, the request will send to the web server, and server will send the response back to the browser. So suppose after two-tier architecture, in industry, the people are using a three-tier architecture. So that how actually three-tier architecture, and it is also follows client-server architecture only. And here, once the client sends the request, different clients are connected and sends the request over the internet to the web server, and web server here the process will be process and sends. And here in this web page, suppose it wants to identify some authentication, and then it will connect it to the database, or it requires any database information, or it requires any authentication. Then from web server, it will connect it to the database, and in the database that verification will be happen, and if it is successful, then it will send that information back to the web server, and web server will check that result and sends the result or response back to the particular user over the internet. Here in three-tier architecture, the websites, most of the industries will use three-tier architecture for developing websites. Here in this three-tier architecture divided into three parts. First is presentation layer. Second is business layer. Third is database access layer. So what is actually advantage with this three-tier architecture means that suppose you want some later in point the client wants to change some structure of the user interface or structure of the front page, then he will do the changes in the presentation layer, what it appears. So how actually the website is appeared to the outside world. So that entire logic we will give it in our presentation layer. So next, business layer. Suppose if you are developing a site for the university where actually the marks and everything, it has to be calculated and it has to send it the total marks to the student. That entire logic here actually we will write it in our business layer. And suppose while doing validations or authentications, so whether that student is belongs to the particular college or not. So these all authentications and the information storage get it back stored in the database. Suppose you want to change any information, for example, some particular PDF time, I want to change some bonus or some discounts or some offers to the students. So that time, if I change the logic in our business layer, then without affecting of any of other layers, so I can able to do that modification so that I can able to maintain the integrity between our different modules. So this is nothing but three-tier architecture. So most of the companies or industries will use this three-tier architecture while developing websites. Now come to the basic structure of HTML. How? Because we said that we are using HTML to create static web pages. How the structure of the HTML web page? So this HTML document consists of two parts. The first one is header part and another one is body part. So what in header part it will contain? The header element contains the title and metadata of a web document. So the body part contains the information what you want to display on a web page. So mainly the header part. Suppose if you are taking, this is a web page. So what title you want to give it for this web page? So in browsers you may have observed that if I am giving up, once the user is coming www.google.com. So once you may have seen that after that in the down part, you may have seen that google.com/ that / and some index.html like this. So this index.html, that is actually what title you want to give it to the website. So that portion will be appeared in your header part, and in the body part contains what actually you want to display on this web page. So that information you are able to provide in the body part. How? Let me see. The all HTML, the HTML web pages starts with the HTML tag. So it shows that this web page is developed by using HTML tag element. So this tag elements open, this tag element is enclosed with open and closing angular brackets. The first, it is showing up on HTML. This is tag elements enclosed with opening and closing braces, closing angular brackets. So this tag indicates that this web page is written in HTML. It will indicate this page is written in HTML. Now under header tag, the title. So what is this title tag will say about that? It contains the web page. What is a web page title? Index.html, like in the before example, I have said that index.html. So that title will be appear. So, or you can say, suppose example of hello world. You are creating some web page, hello world. So what actually this web page is talking about of that? That title you need to write it down. So in this body part, the content of the page. So you may say that in hello world, welcome to my own website, or welcome to IARE. So this will be appeared under your body part by using of different, how actually this welcome to IARE, that letters or information wants to appear on the screen. So by using of different tag elements, we can able to present it of how it has to appear on the websites. So the body tag contains the content of the web page. And now this // HTML marks the end of the web page. This is the basic structure of the HTML look likes. So if you observe, this is like doc type because it is used in the HTML 5.0 versions. Before versions, if you are using before version, you no need to type this doc type also. You just give it a HTML tag is enough. HTML, header and title, web page title, and this is the structure. So before choosing any title tag, you should be little careful. So the purpose of title page itself is determines the ranking in certain search engines, because once a user wants to search some websites, so based on your title only, that ranking will be found. So this title will also appear in favorite list, history list and bookmarks list to identify your page. And this is a sample displaying the text in HTML page. This is a sample HTML web page. So let me see HTML, head, title, basic HTML document, and closing the header tag and body. So by using of H1 tag element, it shows that this is heading 1. So heading 1 means that it will contain it will appear like very big. Welcome to the world. This is heading 1. This H1 tag will says about a heading 1, and heading 1 followed by closing heading 1 tag, and P is nothing but paragraph tag element, a sample HTML program /p and /body. So ending body and ending HTML web page tag element. So this output will become like this: welcome to to World of Web. So it's like totally one line only. Welcome to World of Web, and here sample HTML program. After executing, after once you are typing of this HTML, you need to save this HTML web page with the save as file type is .html, and you can execute this code in any browser by using of either Google Chrome or Internet Explorer. Then you will get the output. The browser will execute and render this output back to the user. So in this session, we learned different terminologies we will use in our web environment day-to-day life, and what are the languages we will use to create the web pages. And we have seen is basic structure of the HTML page, and in next sessions we will see what are the basic tag elements are there in the HTML to create web pages. Thank you.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.